Welcome back to another episode of SmoothBrainEDH, where we make the smoothest plays with the biggest brains. We're very excited to bring you all a special themed episode sponsored by Dragon Shield. We're showcasing the Batman sleeves and built decks around all the characters, so let's see what everyone brought to the table. Our first players today is Chandler on Ghalta and Mavren using the Batman sleeves. Note, there is a T-Rex in the Batcave, Chandler said so. This Celestian deck is all around tokens, flooding the board with as many as possible to overwhelm opponents. He starts the game with the Snow-Covered Plains, Sunpetal Grove, Prismatic Vista, Path to Exile, Kodama's Reach, Tempt with the Discovery, and Legion's Landing. Up next is Sam on Blim, Comedic Genius, using the Joker sleeves. This is a Rakdos deck focused around donating permanents with negative effects to opponents to mess up their game plans. He keeps a hand with 2 mountains, Smoldering Marsh, Urborg Tomb of Yawgmoth, Rakdos Signet, Whisper Silk Cloak, and Chaos Warp. The third is Cameron on Lurrus of the Dream Den, using the Catwoman sleeves. This Orzhov deck is focused around cheap permanents that you can sacrifice, then recast with Lurrus. His hand is a Plains, Iganjo Seat of the Empire, Vault of Champions, Skull Clamp, Talisman of Hierarchy, Dark Ritual, and Corpse Knight. Last up is Alex on Inquisitor Greyfax, using the Batgirl sleeves. This Esper deck is focused around investigating, creating clue tokens to draw cards and have artifacts on the board for other effects. He starts the game with the Snow-Covered Island, Obscura Storefront, Vault of Champions, Monamo School at Water's Edge, Azorius Signet, Ethereal Investigator, and Bronze Guardian. We're about to hop right into the game, but before that, go ahead and give us a like, subscribe, and read the notification bell so you don't miss any of our new content. We post new gameplay videos every week, so you won't want to miss any of it. Big shout out to our patrons. We really appreciate all the support. Link to our Patreon is in the description, as well as links to the deck lists, our social media, our podcast channel, and our public Discord server. If you like the sleeves shown in this video, check out our affiliate link in the description with Dragon Shield to pick those up, or any other sleeves or Magic related products. We also partner with Inked Gaming, so if you're looking to make any custom playmats, use our affiliate link in the description. Now, on to the gameplay.
It looks like Alex wins the die roll, and he'll start off with Minamo, and then he'll pass to Chandler. Chandler starts off with Snow Plains, and then he'll cast Legion's Landing.
That's like your best turn 1 play.
It's not a Soul Ring.
It's your second best turn 1 play.
So, Chandler will get a 1/1 with lifelink, and while Alex is cooking up a custom token, the turn is passed to Sam, who plays a mountain, and then passes to Cameron. Cameron plays Vault of Champions into Skull Clamp, then passes to Alex, who starts with Snow Island, into a Dimir Signet, and then the turn is passed to Chandler. And Chandler will play Sunpetal Grove, then tap for 2 and cast Idol of Oblivion, then move to combat, hit Cameron for 1 lifelink, and then he'll pass the turn. Sam has a quick turn of playing Mountain, casting Arcane Signet, and then passing to Cameron, who immediately plays a Plains, then taps for 2 to cast his Talisman, then he'll tap his Talisman for a black, and cast Dark Ritual. Then with the Dark Ritual mana, he'll cast Lurrus. The turn is then passed, and Alex will start off by shocking in a Hollowed Fountain. He'll then tap for 2 and cast Azorius Signet, then he'll pass the turn to Chandler, who will start off with Castle Ardenvale, then he'll tap for 3 and cast Kodama's Reach. Before searching, he declares he's getting his Snow Forest to the battlefield tapped and a regular forest to his hand, then he'll move to combat, hit Alex for 1, and then pass to Sam while searching. Sam will immediately play Smoldering Marsh, then tap for 4 and cast Blim, and then he'll pass the turn. Cameron will start off by moving to combat and hitting Chandler for 3 lifelink. Post-combat, he'll shock in a Godless Shrine, and then he'll cast Nile Spellbomb, and immediately crack it, exiling Chandler's graveyard and drawing a card. Then, through the power of Lurrus, he'll cast it again from his graveyard. Then he'll pass the turn to Alex, and he'll start his turn off with an Obscura Storefront. When it ETBs, it'll sack itself, he'll gain a life, and find a Snow Swamp to the battlefield tapped. He'll then tap for 4 and cast Ethereal Investigator, and when it enters the battlefield, he'll investigate 3 times. And then he'll pass the turn to Chandler, and he will start off by tapping for 3 and casting Tireless Tracker, and then he'll play Prismatic Vista as land for turn, and he'll make a clue token. Since he made a token, he'll activate Idol of Oblivion and draw a card. The turn is then passed to Sam, and he'll start off with an Urborg. He'll then tap for 2 and cast Dockside Extortionist. Cam will respond by sacrificing his Nile Spellbomb, and he will pay a black to it to draw a card, and his exile target is Ethan. After this, the Dockside resolves, and Sam gets 10 treasure tokens. He'll then tap for 2 and cast Rakdos Signet, then he'll cast and equip Shadow Spear to Blim, then he'll do the same thing with Whisper Silk Cloak, but Chandler will hold priority in response to the equip trigger. If you remember the opening hands, Chandler does have a Path to Exile and an open white land. But Sam sees the malicious intent in Chandler's eye, and he offers, "I won't swing him at you this turn." Chandler seems to be happy with that, but he also adds, "I'm casting Tempting Discovery next turn. Will you accept the tempting offer?" And Sam says he will. So, the equip trigger will resolve. And then Sam will use the rest of his treasures to cast Midnight Oil, and then he moves to combat. He'll swing an unblockable Blim at Cameron for 5 lifelink and give him the Midnight Oil. Cameron also has to discard Brainstone, and Midnight Oil will cause him to lose a life, and Blim will also make him lose a life. The turn is then passed to Cameron, and Midnight Oil will trigger, causing him to draw an additional card, but his max hand size is then reduced to 5. And then Cameron plays Iganjo as land for turn. He'll then drop a Soul Ring, then Dispeller's Capsule, and then Mother of Runes. And he immediately equips her with Skull Clamp to draw 2 cards. After this, he moves to combat and swings Lurrus at Sam. And then he'll pass the turn to Alex. And Alex will start off by casting a Baleful Strix, drawing a card when it enters the battlefield. He'll then play and fetch with a Polluted Delta, shocking in a Watery Grave when he does. And then he'll tap for 4 to cast Inquisitor Greyfax. After this, he'll move to combat and he'll swing his Ethereal Investigator at Sam, who can't block, and then he'll pass the turn to Chandler, who stops on instep to fetch with Prismatic Vista for a Plains, Tracker trigger, and then he'll crack a clue, and then remembers to put the counter on Tracker during his turn. Now in his turn, he will immediately cast Tempt with Discovery.
Sam, are you saying yes?
I'm contractually obligated to say yes.
Are you saying yes?
Yeah, I'm saying
Get
4.
fucking Field of the Dead. I'm saying yes.
So yeah, Chandler's Tempt resolves, and all of his opponents agree to search for a land. So that means he gets to get 4 lands to the battlefield. So he grabs Castle Garenbrig, Hall of Heliod's Generosity, Windswept Heath, and Field of the Dead. Sam gets Cabal Coffers, Cameron gets Wasteland, and Alex gets his own Field of the Dead. When Chandler's lands enter the battlefield, they all see each other, so Field of the Dead will trigger 4 times, and so does Tireless Tracker. Cameron will respond to these triggers by immediately wastelanding his Field of the Dead. Chandler will respond to that by fetching with his Windswept Heath, finding a Plains to the battlefield, getting an additional Tracker and Field of the Dead trigger. So he'll get a total of 5 more clues and 5 2/2 zombies, and then his Field of the Dead is destroyed. And you know, I think he made a token this turn, so he'll activate Idol of Oblivion to draw a card. He also plays Yavimaya as land for turn, getting another clue token. And then he'll cast the saddest Keeper of the Accord I've ever seen, move to combat, and hit Cameron for 1 lifelink, and then he'll pass the turn to Sam, who will play a Swamp as land for turn, and then he'll move to combat and swing over at Chandler. And when it connects, he'll give Chandler his Dockside Extortionist, and then Chandler and Cameron both have to discard a card and lose a life, but Cameron will lose 1 additional life. Chandler discards a land, and Cameron discards Selfless Spirit. Sam will then pass the turn, unfortunately not having much to do in his hand, and Cameron will stop on end step to Dispeller's Capsule, his Whisper Silk Cloak. Now on Cameron's draw step, he'll draw 2, and then Midnight Oil clicks down to 3. He'll then play a Plains as land for turn, and then recast Dispeller's Capsule from his graveyard. And then he'll cast Executioner's Capsule from his hand. After this, he'll cast Call of the Death Dweller, returning Mother of Runes with a Death Touch counter and Selfless Spirit with a Menace counter. He'll then move to combat and swing for 3 Commander again at Sam, who has to take it, and then he'll just pass the turn to Alex. And Alex immediately taps for 3 blue, and then he'll tap 3 clue tokens to improvise Whir of Invention, X's3, and he'll find Academy Manufactor to the battlefield. He'll then tap his last 5 mana to cast Tamio's Journal. And then he'll pass the turn to Chandler, who stops on end step to path to Exile Mom. Then he starts his turn off with a Command Tower. Landfall triggers, and he'll make a clue token, and then he'll use Idol of Oblivion to draw a card. Then he'll tap for 7 mana and cast his commander, Ghalta and Mavren, and then he'll move to combat. He turns everything he can sideways. The 1/1 Vampire, Dockside, and Keeper of the Accord will go at Cameron, 4 zombies go at Alex, and 1 zombie and Tireless Tracker go at Sam. After these attacks are declared, Ghalta will trigger and make 9 1/1 vampires with lifelink, and Chandler's Legion's Landing will flip into a Danto. Then, moving on to blocks, Sam and Cameron don't, and then Alex will block a 2/2 zombie with Greyfax, Academy Manufactor, and Ethereal Investigator, and then he'll take 2. Then, post-combat, Chandler casts 3 visits and finds a Savannah, then passes to Sam, and Sam will start off with a basic Swamp. And then he'll just move to combat and swing for 5 in the air at Chandler again, who just has to take it. There's a damage trigger, and Sam gives Chandler his Rakdos Signet. Then Chandler discards 2 lands, and Cameron descends Ascend from Avernus, and they both lose 2 life. Sam will then pass the turn to Cameron, but on end step, Cameron will sacrifice Dispeller's Capsule to blow up Tamio's Journal. Alex will respond by sacrificing 3 clues to it and tapping it to search for a card to his hand. He'll then move to Cameron's turn, and he'll just hit Sam with Lurrus. After combat, he'll clamp the Selfless Spirit to draw 2. Then he'll cast and crack an Urza's Bauble, and Chandler tries to convince Cameron to target him because he's got no cards in hand, but ultimately Cameron decides to target Sam, who only has 1 card in hand. Cameron will then, with the power of Lurrus, recast the Urza's Bauble. He'll then move to his end step, and since he still has the Midnight Oil and it only has 1 counter left on it from this turn, he discards Patch Up and Corpse Knight, and then he'll lose 2 life to this and pass the turn to Alex. On Alex's upkeep, Cameron will draw a card. And then on his first main phase, Alex will immediately tap for 6 and cast Farewell, choosing all modes, and he says this is the card he tutored for. Chandler, who is empty-handed, responds first by cracking 2 clue tokens to draw 2 cards. Sam has no responses, and Cam responds by Urza's Bobbling Chandler, who just put 2 new cards in his hand. He says,
That's a good card.
and then the Farewell resolves, leaving nothing but lands. After this, Alex casts Thought Vessel, and then he'll pass the turn to Chandler. And Chandler will immediately tap for 4 and cast Parallel Lives into Elspeth Sun's Champion. So yeah, he gets to uptick her and make 6 1/1s. And he forgets to actually represent the 5 loyalty on Elspeth immediately. He will fix that later. And then the turn is passed to Sam, who starts off with a basic swamp, and then he'll activate Cabal Coffers for 8 black mana. He'll use 5 of it, then tap for an additional red to recast Blim. Then he'll cast Chaos Warp on Chandler's Parallel Lives. It resolves, and after a good shuffle and cut, the top card is Gallagreeters, so Chandler puts it to the battlefield. And then the turn is passed to Cameron, and he will immediately tap for 5 and recast Lurrus. Then he'll cast a Carrion Feeder, then Esper Sentinel. He then sacks it to Carrion Feeder and then recasts it from the graveyard, and then he'll pass the turn to Alex. Alex will just tap for 6 mana and recast Greyfax, and then he passes to Chandler. And Chandler on his turn will cast Elish Norn Grand Cenobite, and he will activate Castle Garenbrig for this, but since Elish Norn is 7 mana and requires 2 white, he will have 1 green floating left over from this that he can only spend on creature spells. And Cameron will respond by sacrificing both of his creatures to Carrion Feeder so it won't die to this. And when Elish Norn resolves, Gallagreeters will gain Chandler 2 life. After this, with the floating green he has, he'll tap for an additional green to cast the OG Ghalta. And when it enters the battlefield, Gallagreeters will get a +1/+1 counter. After this, he'll move to combat and swing 3 of his 3/3s at Alex and 3 of them at Cameron. And they aren't going to block, so they each take 9 damage. After combat, he'll uptick Elspeth to make 3 more dudes. Gallagreeters will trigger, making a tap treasure token, and then he'll pass the turn to Sam. Sam, who is Hellbent, draws his card, which is unfortunately a swamp, which he will play as land for turn. He'll then move to combat, and since Alex is the only person at the table with cards in hand, Sam will send Blim at him. So Alex will take 2 commander, and then Sam will give him 1 of his mountains, and then Alex forgets to actually discard a card. The turn is then passed to Cameron, who will just cast Angelic Renewal, then he'll move to combat, hit Sam for 2 with his Carrion Feeder, and then he'll just pass the turn. Alex will start off with a pair of Lightning Greaves. Then he equips them to Greyfax, then casts an Idol of Oblivion, and then he'll pass the turn to Chandler. And on upkeep, he'll activate Greyfax to tap down Ghalta, and investigate. Chandler then activates Castle Garenbrig and then taps for an additional 3 white to recast Ghalta. Alex will respond by using his Minamo to untap Greyfax, and then he'll tap down Elish Norn with her. And so after this, Chandler will move to combat and swing for 24 at Alex, 3 at Sam, and 4 at Cameron. There are no blocks for any of this, so they all take the damage, and unfortunately Alex dies. And since he attacked with 10 creatures with Ghalta and Mavren out, he will make 10 1/1 vampires with lifelink. Now, Chandler originally missed the Gallagreeters trigger when he cast Ghalta and Mavren, but he will definitely get all 3 of them off this. Chandler will then uptick Elspeth to make 3 more dudes, and then he passes the turn to Sam. Sam will cast the card he draws, which is Tormod's Crypt. He'll then move to combat and swing at Chandler with Blim to get the last card in his hand out. And when Blim connects, Chandler responds to the trigger by casting Teferi's Protection. It resolves, and funnily enough though, while Chandler is still under the protection of Teferi, when Blim's trigger resolves, Sam still has to give him something, so he gives him the Tormod's Crypt, which isn't phased out, and Chandler will immediately crack it to exile Cameron's graveyard. The turn is then passed to Cameron, and he'll start off with a Mind Stone, which he'll immediately sacrifice to draw a card, and it'll find him a Marsh Flats, which he plays as land for turn.
Go to combat. I'll swing for you. I will sacrifice Carrion Feeder to its own ability. Angelic Renewal will come back. It will come back. It will die.
Yeah, so then Cameron will pass the turn to Chandler, and Chandler will just untap to just tap his creatures again during combat and kill all of his opponents, because that is more than enough. So yeah, Chandler is the winner today. Congratulations. Well, everybody, there you have it. that was one hell of a game, and it was Batman themed. Yes, there is a T-Rex in the Batcave. Let us know what you guys thought down in the comments below. I really enjoyed watching and narrating it, and while you're down there, be sure to check out all the deck lists, and if you're interested, pick up those Batman sleeves. They were really fun to play with. If you do, please use our affiliate link. Thank you all so much for watching. That is all for today. I hope you all enjoyed watching, and I hope you have a smooth day.